Hi, I'm Richard Randall, and welcome to The Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Colorado Springs Real Estate Authority, that is Barb Schlinker. Barb is a retired Navy veteran. Barb is an author, she's a pilot, and she and her team enjoy all that the Springs has to offer. Great to be talking with you this morning, Barb. We air the Real Estate Voice show every Saturday, and if you can't listen to the whole show because you're driving or busy doing something else, it is always available on Barb's site, barbhasthebuyers.com, or you can just search for it, Barb Schlinker, Schlinker, on most of the popular podcast platforms, IHeart Radio and the rest. And every week, the Real Estate Voice covers great information about the housing market and one of your largest assets, that is your home. So Barb, what will we be talking about today?
Well, Richard, I'm really excited about today's show because it's going to cover some things that are very important to people right now, especially if you're planning on buying or selling. So the first segment, you don't want to miss that. We're talking about, will housing prices fall as interest rates rise? Well, the answer to that question is absolutely yes. And I've got some new data that's going to kind of fill you in on what to expect and, more importantly, what to do if you're going to sell a home right now. Also, how to sell the home fast and for the most money. There's actually an art to that. We're going to talk about that. And this is a subject near and dear to my heart because I've been through it. I've helped a lot of clients through it. Having to sell a family home, like your parents' home or a family member that might have to go into a care facility or something like that. It's quite a process, and I want to give some good information so our customers can really hear what they need to do to prepare in that situation. And the very last topic is kind of fun for me. It's, do you really save money hiring an agent that discounts their fee? Plus, I'm going to cover all my hot new listings. Richard?
Barb, you are amazing. I tell people that all the time, but you truly are, because you know this subject inside and out. You've been doing it for a couple of decades here in Colorado Springs, and you know whether somebody's a veteran, whether they're active duty, whether they're buying, selling, it doesn't matter. You've been through this stuff before. So let's start here. The Fed has announced that they're going to keep raising interest rates until inflation drops to 2%. So with it currently being way above that number, what impact do you think that's going to have on the housing market when it comes to rising interest rates?
Well, Richard, we have just come off the probably biggest ever boom in real estate that we will see in our lifetimes. And there was another one back in 2005, but that doesn't come close to the one that happened between the mid 2020 all the way up until April of 2022. So the Fed, Jerome Powell, has promised to continue driving up interest rates until inflation goes down to 2%. Well, so far, the interest rates have more than doubled. For conventional rates, they went from 3-ish to just over 7. Jeez. And so far, it's had little effect on inflation, but it has had a lot of effect and a very quick effect on the housing market. In fact, prices have dropped over $44,000 on average for home price just since April. We have never seen this before. I was in real estate during the meltdown, and when that started to happen, our market just went flat. It didn't drop like an elevator in 3 or 4 months. So it's really interesting what's happening right now. And I did a little research on this. So inflation right now, according to the Fortune magazine, is at a 40-year high. And with the Fed rising interest rates to fight inflation, the actual net result is a term that they coined, which I really liked it, called demand destruction on the housing market. It is cooling the housing market off so fast. And it's actually kind of scary what's happening here. And we're basically in uncharted waters because if inflation does not come down, the rates are going to go higher. So some of us were around back in the 70s when interest rates were 17%. I was younger then, but it didn't matter to me. I wasn't buying a house at the time, but they were pretty high. Even when I bought my first house in the 80s, they were up in double digits. So I think part of the problem is you've got this, mostly the buyers are millennials and Gen Xers, and they've only seen 3.5% interest rates. So for them to see them all of a sudden double overnight, the problem is those rates affect a house payment, and those higher house payments are actually driving the buyers out of this market, and they're having to sit on the sideline and rent and hope maybe the rates or the prices are going to come down. So really what happened is they did some research and they looked into some of the big analytic companies on Fortune magazine. One of them was Moody's Analytics, CoreLogic, and the Florida Atlantic University. And all three of them said the same thing. We are in a historic overvaluation of the housing market. And I think that means in compared to affordability of homes. So just in the past 2 years, depending on what part of the country you're in, home prices have risen anywhere from 35 to 46%. That's substantial. So what does that mean? Well, it means prices are higher. And it worked fine when the rates were low. Buyers could afford the payments. But now that the rates are hovering, a 30-year fixed rate, I just checked, is 7.173%. FHA and VA loans are down in the mid sixes. And that's typical that the government loans are going to be a little bit less than the conventional loans. So that means that a house payment is substantially higher. And just looking very locally, I checked on stats this morning, Richard. The number of available properties is still up from weeks before, over 2,500 homes. Number of available single family homes, over 2,300 homes. But here's the key. The problem is a lot of these home sellers are looking back on the April pricing and they're not pricing their home appropriately. So every single week, week after week, about 1/4 of those home sellers are dropping their price because their original asking price is not working. And here's the kicker, the worst part of all, is that 11.6% of those home sellers currently on the market in the past week got contracts. 11% sold. So what does that tell me? It tells me right now, if you put 10 homes on the market, only one of them is going to sell on average. And part of it is you're being deceived by looking backwards and saying, oh, well, my home is worth this much because that home is similar to mine and it sold for this much. And when you price that way, guess what? The buyers are not biting. A lot of it has to do with affordability. A lot of it has to do with they're finding better deals elsewhere or just getting priced out of the market. So looking backwards is really not a great indicator of your home's value right now. It's always best to be priced very realistically, in fact, extra realistically, even on the low side of realistic, to get the home sold. The good news in all this is if you look back from a year ago, even from a year ago when we were flying high in the market, everybody was overbidding on homes. Each home had multiple offers. Even from a year ago, we're seeing the average price of a home 5.5% higher than it was a year ago. And some homes are flying off the market and some are not. So it really matters who you hire as a real estate agent to handle the sale. If a home is well marketed, then it's probably not priced correctly, right? Marketing is all about creating demand. So how do you create demand? You want to make sure the home is prepared appropriately, that it's priced realistically, and that it's promoted appropriately with the right kind of marketing. So you want to make sure if you have to go on the market right now that you don't leave any deferred maintenance undone, because buyers will turn their nose up at your house and move on to the next one. Most buyers don't want to fix up homes. And if you assume that the buyers will accept your deferred repairs, think again. Even the prettiest homes that I have on the market right now, if they have something defective, it gets tagged on the inspection. And sometimes buyers won't even make an offer in that case, or their offer comes in exponentially less than the cost of the repair. Now, some parts of getting ready to sell your home are in the seller's control: clutter, fixing things, etc. And other parts are in the agent's control. I'm showing a picture right now. I found this on the MLS, Richard. I don't know if you can see it, but it was the first picture. So the first picture is key. People spend more than a third of their time looking at the outside of the home first before they move on to the inside. And this is a bi-level home that, I don't know if the picture was not a lot, but the house looks crooked by a lot.
It looks like it's the same architect as the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
It's terrible. It's like, oh my gosh, this is marketing. So you really want to focus on the key things: curb appeal, flooring, paint, kitchens, baths, and make sure it's clean. And of course, price it right is super, super important. The online marketing has to be top notch, because we know that 80% of the decisions of whether or not a buyer is even going to go look at your home has to do with the pictures that are presented online. Don't let a real estate agent cause demand destruction for you. You should hire an agent that knows how to get you top dollar. Richard?
You're listening to the Real Estate Voice, Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and you can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900. We're talking about the impact of rising interest rates on the housing market. Barb, should buyers wait until prices start to come down?
Well, I get the logic on that. Let's, wait till it's more affordable. Maybe the prices will reduce enough so I could afford. However, the problem is, with the rates rising like they are, there's no 100% surety that the rates are going to come back down. The reason the rates were so low in the first place is the government was buying back bonds from the bank to make them artificially low. And if you look back over 50 years, the average interest rate was 7%, which is where it's at now. So time is not your friend for a seller, and it's certainly not your friend for a buyer. It is, but unfortunately, some of the agents out there think it is. So what they're doing is they're coming in really lowball with their offers. They're asking for huge amounts of closing costs to be paid by the seller. But if you want to get a contract, I wouldn't do that. I just went through 6 different offers with one seller to finally get the best offer, because he just said, no, I'm not paying their closing costs. I don't care how much they ask for. And so, when we were in more of a buyer's market back in 2012, it took 4 months on average to sell a home. It still only takes 25 days. So as a buyer, you need to evaluate what's in your budget, what can you afford payment wise, what does the competition look like, and how do you get that home? Because here's the thing: if you don't have a contract, you can't lock in your interest rate if you're getting a mortgage, and the prices are just going to keep going up, either home prices or interest rate. So now is the time. This is a great time to buy. It's also a great time to sell before the prices drop even further. So if you're thinking of moving, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to the Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you are thinking of making a move, Barb is the only person to call. 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking about how to sell a home fast and for the most money. You don't want to miss that.